Can you actually read that
Mm-mm.
font? Okay, because I can. Good evening, everyone, and thank you for watching the Barre Beat podcast live, Main Street, Barre, Vermont, here in the 802 Scoop. With us tonight, we have the ever lovely Raylene
Hi
and
there.
and a special guest, our next Lieutenant Governor, John Rodgers. How you doing,
I'm
sir?
doing great. Thanks for
Welcome.
having me. Thank you.
Hey, thank you
Good
for
to have
coming.
you.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
So,
Did you go thaw out before you came over?
Yeah, actually went over to Mulligan's with Gina and Dan and had a bite to eat. Wonderful place over there. I've frequented McGillicuddy's in a lot of different areas, but that was my first visit to Mulligan's. Love it.
Nice.
Yeah, the girls were sporting cowboy hats tonight, and I wasn't sure if they were riding a bull later or if
What they were going to do?
it was, maybe a Halloween thing. I'm not sure what was going on, but yeah, nice place to get a bite.
well, let me tell you, Gina can get pretty wild, so
Yeah.
she can get.
Well, I bugged out before wild time, Michael.
Good evening, Don. Don Koch is with us. Yeah, so for folks that don't know, we were just down at City Hall Park. We had a huge sign wave. We had Gina Galfetti. We had Michael Deering, Topper McFawn, Don Koch, Michael Doyle, myself, and, of course,
John Rodgers.
John Rodgers.
Yeah, what a wonderful turnout. What a crew tonight, huh?
It
Yeah.
was great.
And
Yeah.
a lot of folks beeping and waving, and nice event. Yeah.
It's great. There's a lot of excitement in the air. I feel like, I mean, there's a lot of right. Obviously, there's a lot of sadness in the air because of the affordability issues in the state of Vermont. But I think that for the same amount of like frustration and sadness, I feel like there's a lot of excitement to get people like you into office.
Good momentum.
Yes,
Yeah,
I
yeah.
really do think so. So tell me, how's the campaign been going?
The campaign's been going great, and our message is being, embraced across the state. There are three shocking things that I'm hearing from people around the state. And the first one is the number of folks who are like my age and a little older who are getting close to retirement who are telling me, as soon as I retire, I'm out of here because we can't afford to live here anymore. The second one is the number of people who tell me I don't go to Burlington anymore. And I know I have some friends who have businesses in Burlington. They say their businesses are way off, like 20%. When you go down there, there's open drug use, there's needles laying around, there's homeless people, there's retail theft, there's violence at night. The shop owners are telling me they don't let anybody walk back to their car alone anymore. And even in pairs, they told some pretty scary stories. But the most shocking and the most troubling one is the number of families who are in their prime work years with kids in school who say, as soon as the kids are out of school, I'm out of here. That is the demographic we need more of in the state, not less.
For sure.
Yeah.
And they are feeling pushed out. We had a little meet and greet a couple weeks ago, and I had a superintendent of schools come up to me and say, John, thank you so much for running. I really like your message. He said, and he benefits from the property tax, right? That's how his check is paid, his work. And he said to me, we love this community. My kids love the school. But my property taxes have doubled in 6 years. And he said, I don't think I'm going to be able to live here when my kids get out of school. Now that was shocking because a superintendent makes substantially more than the average pay in Vermont, and he is saying he's not going to be able to stay here. So that it's just really disturbing to hear how many people, some of them whose families have lived here for generations, who have just given up and don't feel like they can afford to live
Yeah, they
here.
just can't do it anymore.
Yep.
Yeah. I hear the same thing. I think we both do. We hear that a lot, and that's what I see a lot in the comments of things in the chat, on the podcast page. A lot of comments, the same sort of thing. If you post, most things that you post around the clean heat or things that are happening right now, property taxes, etc., that's what people say. We're going to have to leave. We can't be here anymore.
Yeah, and it's scary. And
Sad.
that's really the only reason I got back in. I didn't really want to get back into politics. I was thinking, I did my 16 years. You know, I've been in state government for a little over 20 years, from the first time I ran to the last time I ran. Served in town politics. And I really wanted to be able to spend more time with my family and on my farm and doing some of the things that I haven't.
Well, then you got to save that.
Yes, and then there it is right there. The whole reason I'm back in it is because I'm looking at my kids and grandkids and saying, if things don't change, they're not going to be able to stay here. They're not going to be able to live here, and I'm questioning whether I'm going to be able to live here. You know, it's all about family, and it's all about being able to be close to them. And you know, if they wanted to live somewhere else, then fine, we'd have to figure out how to travel. But they want to live here, and we want to live here, and we've got thousands of families across the state that are feeling the same way. I talked with a guy the other day down in Randolph. We had an event down at VTC, and he said he's got 3 kids. They all live close by. They've all got kids, so you know, he's got a whole gaggle of grandkids around. And he said one of his boys walked up to him a few weeks ago and said, "Dad, where are we all moving to?" Because they want to stay together as a family, and they're all feeling they can't afford to live here anymore. And what are Vermonters going to do when all the people who build your houses and fix your plumbing and do your excavating
They're
and
all
work
gone.
on your cars, and all of the working class people who keep this state running can't afford to live here and move to somewhere else? It's a serious problem.
Yeah. Yep. That's I've said that many times. If you think Main Street looks empty now, we haven't seen anything if it keeps going this way.
Yeah, and that's you know, people, when we talk about the property tax, people think about the effect on them personally, right? We all open our property tax bill and go, "Holy cow, how am I going to do this?" Right? But one of my friends runs Washington Electric, and he said their property taxes they have to pay on their poles and wires and all their infrastructure, right, went up massively. That gets added to our electricity bills. The local mechanic, his garage, his workshop just went up. He's going to have to add that to the cost of fixing your car.
Inspection fees and
The
this,
gross,
that, and the
and that's
other.
it. The grocery store, and it goes on and on and on. So these property taxes are going to multiply far beyond just the cost to us each individually in our own bill.
Scary.
Scary.
So, you know, I do got a question for you because, I mean, granted, you know, you basically break the tie, but if there is a tie on this issue, I'm just curious where you would stand. One of the topics that I've heard a lot about has been changing the funding model for the school from property tax to income tax, which I'll be very honest, I didn't think about until I started hearing about it. And I would like to hear what your thoughts on that are.
Yeah, I don't think there's any way to make it work on the income tax. Number one, we draw a huge amount of money from out-of-staters and second homeowners. And so if you do it on income tax, how are you going to tax them? Can you tax them differently than Vermonters? There's a whole fairness thing. The bottom line is we're spending too much money. The bottom line is we have done 38 studies, and the legislature just authorized the 39th study, and they've never done a thing with a single one of the studies. And if they would have started, this goes back 20 years, if they would have started 20 years ago making some adjustments, we wouldn't be in this predicament. The problem is they have neglected their duty. My opponent and the progressives had total control the last 2 years. They own it. Phil Booth literally stood up at the end of the year and said, we have proven we don't need the governor. We don't need the administration, because they overrode all of his vetoes, right? They own it. So in the last 2 years, ask everybody, do you feel better off than you did 2 years ago? I don't. Property taxes went up double digits. Your health insurance went up double digits. DMV fees went up 20%. New payroll tax, your electricity bills went up $100 million a year across the state, and that goes largely to the millionaire developers who fund all their campaigns. And then there's the clean heat standard. And now they're all trying to back away from it now because Vermonters are so angry. But the House passed a bill, and my opponent supported that bill, that would have had no check back. The Senate pushed them and made them put a check back in. So if the Senate wouldn't have done that, we'd have had a clean heat standard coming in with billions of dollars of new cost on Vermonters that we can't afford.
You know, speaking about the clean heat standard, I agree with you. I think I've called it an abomination, which I was criticized for by one of my opponents, which I don't care. But question, because the comment that I'm hearing from a lot of the people on the other side is that it's all blown up and it's all not true. And the idea that there's going to be a 78 cents minimum, right? A 78, I think it's
From 78 to $4.
to $4, right? And this is all coming from, you know, reputable sources like, you know, WCAX and Matt Coda. Is it Matt Coda? You know, all of that information. You know, they're saying that it's not accurate, which when I look at, you know, the news articles, I can only go by what I'm hearing. So what's your response to the people that, because when somebody asks me, I just say WCAX said it.
Yeah.
You know, I mean, I don't know what to say. I mean, it's there. You can try to polish that turd all you want, but no matter what, it's going to still look like a turd.
Exactly.
As a farmer,
I think a lot of people have looked into it, and every reputable group that has looked into it has said there's going to be a large cost, and that's where they came up with the 70 cents to $4 and somewhere in between. 70 cents is too much. $4 is outrageous. It'll cripple people. They will not be able to afford to heat their house.
And the thing is that it's all fine and dandy to say that, you know, people will change, but in Barre City, 60% of our housing is rental stock, and that's not something that a landlord is just going to pop over to, you know, the heat pumps, which who knows if they're going to work during the winter.
They don't work during cold weather. They
No.
just don't work, period. And there's a ton of people who will tell you that they do, and they are improving the technology. But we had some close friends, they're in their 80s, they bought into what the salesman was telling them. They got rid of their oil furnace, and he called us up when it got really cold, and he said, this friggin' thing is blowing cold air. It's like an air conditioner. Think about this. Put your refrigerator in the middle of the desert when it's 120 degrees and put your beer in it and see if it keeps your beer cold. You cannot make cold air out of 120 degree air, and you cannot make heat out of 0 degrees. And those things run 24/7 when it gets real cold. They are excellent heaters in shoulder seasons. They air condition well. They're good units. I think it's great to put them in. I think there are some benefits, but
You better have a backup.
You have to have a backup. And what happens when the electricity goes out? I mean, I'm not giving up my wood furnace because wood makes heat no matter if there's electricity or not.
It's true.
And it's the best heat ever.
It's the best heat, and it's local heat. It's a renewable resource. As far as I'm concerned, and there are people who would like us to stop burning wood.
Oh, I know.
Wood is the greenest heat source in Vermont when it's done like most people here do it. It's cut locally. It's not trucked very far. It's renewable. It is generally, firewood is generally a low-grade wood product. It is the best way to heat, in my view.
I'm not gonna lie. I would love to have a little wood stove, just because
That's
they're just like
amazing.
the crackling,
Yep.
and it's nice and warm, and
The
even though it's like super
consistency.
hot.
Yeah, and the warmth. It's a different heat. It really
It
is.
is. Yeah.
It's a warmer heat than oil heat.
And like it definitely feels different.
Yeah.
I will say that. I mean,
Yeah.
I can go into a house that's wood, wood heating, and it's really hot, and it doesn't bother me as much as going into someone's house that's just really
And
hot.
it's a really good feeling. The beginning of September, even mid-September, to stand back and look at the 6, 8 cord of wood stacked and say, it's all here. I don't have a worry in the world.
Well-
It's all here. It's not even that bad to stack. It's kind of fun if you do it as a family. I'm not going to lie, I used to like doing it.
No,
But
it's nice
a
brainless
good-
work, right? It's like
Yeah,
therapy.
It is, and it's a good feeling to say, there it is. I got my heat for the entire winter.
Except I
It's-
don't.
And right, and
Except I had shoulder surgery, and a one-armed woodcutter is not very
oh
efficient.
no, that's not efficient.
So we got a couple cords in, but as soon as the doctor gives me the okay,
You're gonna be working
I got a lot
hard.
more to cut.
Yeah, yeah.
But no, I know what you mean. I can remember times
It's the
walking
security
down,
that-
walking down in my basement and seeing that wood pile and go,
Mm-hmm.
I mean, this is like money. This is like gold stacked here because this is the heat
Yeah.
that's going to get us through the winter.
It's a security.
It
You're
is.
not saying in
Yeah.
the month of July, in the month of January, saying, oh shit, I need to fill the tank, but how am I going to do it?
And like a lot of us, we did it ourselves. So there's some, there's some pride and satisfaction in that as well. That I can go out on my own land, cut my own trees, and with my labor, heat my home.
Not for me.
Not
Definitely not something I'd want to do.
Good gracious.
I will say you started to talk about Burlington, and both Raylene and I have watched a YouTube video about this guy who used to live in Burlington, went up there, and he just saw.
Well, you went live for
he-
several hours in a day.
Oh, he was live?
Yeah.
I didn't realize he was
Yeah.
live.
Well, when we watched it, no, he wasn't anymore, but he went live. He was live for several hours that day and met with all kinds of different people and toured the city and said, this is what my Burlington is now, because it was his home for a lot of years, and he was shocked.
It's scary. I don't go to Burlington either anymore. I used to go up there. I loved Mike's Pizza, mainly, because the memories I have, and I mean, it's Mike's Pizza. Mike's, namesake.
Yeah, we
kinda.
get it.
Yeah. What's he trying to get at?
And they have great pesto pizza.
Oh, God, I love good pesto on pizza.
Yeah, it's wonderful. But, I think of, going up there, and I don't, I'll be honest with you, and I'm not generally afraid of things, but like that creeps me out going up there, seeing that video. Um, yeah, I mean, and you talked about it. This is a product of poor legislation and poor policies. And I mean, Raylene and I have talked multiple times about, how that whole city is run and the police and everything else.
Right, the assets that want to defund police.
Right.
Yes.
That's the way I
exactly.
put it.
Exactly. and and quite frankly, my opponent was one of those defund the police people, and he's trying to back away from it now. But there are statements that he made in the press that are recorded, and he, says, "Oh, defund the police. It's really not defunding. It's just spending the money differently." Well, when you spend the money differently and you're not supporting your police force, that's what I call defunding the police. And when you go from over 100 police officers in Burlington down to 60, that's what I call defunding the police. And if we want our state to look like Burlington, then we should just let the progressives take over, because that's what it's going to look like. And this is what the progressives have done to Burlington. And I've got friends that have shops down there, and they say their business is off like 20%. And I walked around the city one day with a friend talking with various business owners. And there are business owners that now literally, they don't use branded bags anymore. When they sell something to a person, they put it in like a takeout bag or some unmarked bag, because people walking out of the store are worried about getting ripped off. And one business owner said he gets there early every morning so that he can sweep up and shovel up the needles in the parking lot before customers start coming. It's a mess. And I love downtown Burlington. There's some great businesses. There's some great restaurants. There's some great shops. I used to go there a lot. Definitely go there less now. Parking's a hassle. There's homeless people everywhere. There's people using drugs openly in the streets. It's a mess. And we have to, as a state, give the police and the judiciary the tools they need to deal with this. And first and foremost is we need to go hard on the people who are trafficking these drugs into the state. And what I'm hearing from people is the police do their work. They catch people, they put them in jail, and they're back on the street in a couple days.
Not even, sometimes a couple hours.
It's unbelievable. How are we letting that happen?
Yeah.
They're bringing poison into the street.
And being charged with death resulting, not even attempted murder, manslaughter. I consider it to be premeditated. You have to put fentanyl in another drug. You knowingly do that. But.
And you know what the results can be.
Yeah. And it's just a sale with death resulting.
Yep.
And the maximum penalty for that is 2 years.
Yeah. It's crazy town.
And people don't serve that time. They get good time. They get to, so if you get a 2-year sentence, you only serve a year in prison if you actually go to prison. It's disgusting.
Yeah, and so we have to make sure that the law enforcement has the tools they need to arrest these people, to put them in jail, to do more investigations, to crack down on more of it, because that's the other thing. I have a friend that lives here in town, and he says he knows that the apartment next door is dealing drugs and maybe sex trafficking, and they've called the police, and the police come through, and the police have stopped in, and the police have checked, but nothing's happened. And all these cars from out of state are there, and they're coming and going at all times of night, and they don't look like anybody from here. They're clearly from other places. And so I don't understand, has the legislature made it so hard for the police to actually enforce laws that they're not doing it, or what? I don't
Well,
know
both.
what the
We
reason
don't have.
is.
We don't have. The laws on the books are not what we need. They're that needs to change, and it's the accountability factor. That everybody has to just love each other and be nice to each other and not offend each other, and
Yeah, you can't hug it out with
yeah.
drug dealers.
No,
you really can't.
you can't. Exactly.
It's-
You can't do that.
Yeah, unless it's.
I mean, you can, but you got to squeeze real hard.
Right around the neck.
No, but that's it. I mean, we need to start making examples of these people that are bringing drugs into the community.
Yeah.
Because the addiction problems just keep getting worse and worse, and the only way to get rid of it is shut down the people that are bringing it in.
And rehabilitation.
Well, no, there's
We
there's a
desperately need-
massive amount of treatment needed, but the problem keeps growing if we can't shut down the dealers and
Yeah.
traffickers.
Agreed.
Yeah. The
Wholeheartedly.
Springfield corridor between, is it, what is it? Is there's a term for it, isn't there? Like the corridor between here and Springfield? I can't remember. Somebody
Yeah, and
might-
I was talking with someone a while ago who said that down in the Boston area, it's like Vermont is known as an easy place to deal drugs because, number one, they know that there's no police enforcement out in, like between 2 and 6 in the morning or something, and that the penalties aren't harsh and people get turned out after getting caught, and so it's like we've got this reputation now, which is also harming us because it's seen as an easy place to go make money selling illegal drugs.
And it is. And there needs to be a huge deep dive into people that live in funded housing,
Exactly.
allowing these people to come and live with them.
Because that's where my friend that I was telling you about,
huge-
that's what's happening.
Yeah, it's a huge problem where people that live in funded housing are allowing this to happen, and
Well, they're
then
either-
it's a whole another host. You're talking about trafficking of women and children,
Exactly.
and it's a whole host of problems.
And I have a relative that's in drug treatment, and she said that sort of thing that I was telling you about my friend reporting happens all the time, where there's a person in subsidized housing and maybe they're addicted to drugs, and the drug dealer figures that out, and then they take over their apartment to use to deal drugs
And
out
just feeds them all the drugs they want to
exactly.
do it.
Yep.
Yeah, it's
And it's happening right here under our nose.
it happens every day. It happens every single day here.
Yep.
It's a mess.
And in communities all around the state.
Did you go to the forum for Washington County Mental Health? No, you weren't.
Nope, I did
you were
not.
away. And the one thing I said to all of them, because I spoke to all of them, is that it is my opinion that if you fight and win this war, you can win many others. And I really strongly believe that, because we wouldn't be dealing with as much homelessness. We
Right.
wouldn't be dealing with as much crime. I mean, you fighting that fight and is going to win a lot of battles.
It absolutely is. Absolutely. And look at all the people who could be working if they didn't have addiction issues.
Working, paying for apartments, becoming
Paying taxes,
productive
being-
members
yeah,
of
all of it.
society.
Yep.
All of it. And we're going to get that with long-term treatment. That's the only way we can get that, because the 14 to 21 days is not working.
No, it's a massive investment in time, because we all know that relapses happen, and you've got to have support of a community.
Do you think it's worth the investment?
Absolutely. Every person is worth the investment, especially if they're invested in it. I mean, there's some people that you're not going to save because they don't want to be saved. But there's a lot of people that, with the proper support, will come out of it. And I've become close through the election with Greg and Don Tatro. And,
Amazing people.
Just amazing what they've done at Jenna's Promise, and they've been great supporters for me. I really can't thank them enough for all the help and introducing me around the community and getting other people in the community to support me. But what they have done, and now they're trying to duplicate
In
it.
Newport.
They've just bought another place up in
Yeah.
Newport, and so
My son's
that.
going there.
Oh, really?
I'm
Cool.
so
Yep,
excited.
Yep, because I met some of the ladies that have been through the program,
Mm-hmm.
and it was just wonderful. And I told a couple of the ladies running the store, I said, I just barely met you ladies. I don't know you from Adam, but I'm just so proud of what you've done, because, they went from the very bottom to being productive citizens. They're running the store. That program gives them the job skills. It was really
Yeah.
just touching. Very
Right, and now
to see
they're
it.
members. They pay in. They're
Exactly, but
members.
it takes a community, and that's what Jenna's Promise does. Jenna's Promise brings a community to support them, and they are part of that community. They're part of that family. And unfortunately, there's a lot of people in today's world that don't have that. They don't feel like they're part of a community, or maybe they have family issues, and so when they go down that path, it takes a lot of support to come out of it. And so there's some people that just don't have that support. They don't have the guardian angel looking over them.
It's true. Yeah.
We sit here and we talk about these issues, and we're all in agreement, right? But yet, it's like there's a group of people that just don't see it. How do you crack that? How do you get through to, the person that's like, no. I mean, they see the problem, right? And they're experiencing the problem, but how can we get through to them?
The addict or the community?
The community.
Okay.
Because the problem, I mean, if we had people that were working, I think that if we had good people in office that were working to actually address these issues, it would fix our community. We would have I'm just curious how, as you're out there talking to people, how are you communicating, we've got a problem and you need to listen?
Well, we have a lot of problems.
True.
But none of them matter if we can't afford to live here. So that's what I
Yeah.
focus on first, right? The cost of living. And let's not forget, financial issues are the major driver in divorces, in people losing their homes and becoming homeless. And that's what I'm worried about. So during the last couple of years, under the supermajority, homelessness has just shot up dramatically. And I talked with one guy who does foreclosures for banks. And he said he's doing more foreclosures than ever, which means more people, I don't know where they're going, but they're not in their homes anymore. And he says when I go into these houses, he said, I can just see the desperation. He said there's liquor bottles everywhere and kids' broken toys, and the place is a mess, and you can just see the desperation. And so number one is, let's not exacerbate the problem. Let's not drive more people out of their homes. We have to get a handle on affordability in this state.
Yeah.
And, and quite frankly, finances are another reason. The incidence of depression, mental illness, stress, anxiety, all of those have skyrocketed. And that's what drives a lot of people to self-medicate, right? To start down that path. They can't take the stress, they can't take the pain, whether it's physical or emotional, and they look for a crutch. They look for help, whether it's alcohol or something harder, and that generally leads down a bad road.
Domestic violence is
all
up.
that's
I've done a
tied to
show
it.
with that.
Yep.
I've done, a couple of shows lately, and we've talked about all of that, where domestic violence, mental health, drug use, homelessness, it's all just it's like the numbers are going up and up and up.
And it's all intertwined.
Right, and the new overdose. So the current administration would love for everyone to believe that the overdose, the numbers are way down. Overdose death numbers are down. Overdose numbers are not down.
Right.
Now we have Narcan.
Exactly.
And
let's see the Narcan statistics, right? How many doses of Narcan have been used? Yes, they're saving more lives, less people are dying, but you're right. Overdoses are up, drug use is up, drug addiction is up.
It's through the roof.
Yeah. And when you say administration, not the Scott
No,
administration.
like the
super majority.
Yeah, that because
I just wanted to clarify that.
Yeah, that's just the super majority. That, and same sort of thing though, is because we don't want to hurt anybody's feelings and talk about this kind of stuff. Let's put DARE back in school and start educating when they're really young and we need to go backwards before we can go forward. That's my opinion. You know how I feel about that part.
I do.
I say it all the time. We had to take a few steps back, which I thought we were going to do during COVID. I thought that we did. I thought that people kind of it was a reality check of we need the mom and pop, and we need we need the farmers. We need we need each other.
For a minute.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I had hope, but
yeah. No,
I got smashed
you know
all
what?
to hell.
The other thing is, it's inevitable. There'll be another one. And here's the funny thing. We were having a debate in the Senate one time, and pandemic is one of the things that I mentioned of the many things that could upset so-called civilization, right? And they all looked at me like I had a third eye, and a few years later we have a pandemic. And it appears, there's all these emerging viruses and diseases, and they say that as the ice melts, they're finding bacteria and viruses that have been dormant for thousands or hundreds of thousands of years. We have absolutely no idea, and because humans have changed so much, and so many people travel now, it's like all of the invasive species, like the emerald ash borer and Eurasian water milfoil and all those things that are now invasive species here in Vermont, came from other places because of global trade. And between global trade and global travel, these diseases just spread around like wildfire. And so I think that we better stay prepared. We weren't really prepared for the first one. And turns out that, it was scary in the beginning, but it wasn't a really strong pandemic. I mean, COVID didn't turn out to be something that is really strong like some of the older plagues have been, and you never know when something really bad could come back.
Yeah, so, hey Gina Galfetti's watching, and she asks a question here. How do you feel about, because we were just talking about drug overdoses, how do you feel about overdose prevention sites? We know that Phil Scott did veto that one, and the legislature overrid it, and I think it was overridden by the strength of one vote.
Yeah, by the slimmest margin. So I mean, at this point, I don't support them because I think the money can be spent better ways. There are some jurisdictions where they actually have had some success with them, but there's other jurisdictions where they were a complete failure. The bottom line is Vermont has limited resources, and we need to focus those resources where they are providing the most bang for the buck. And for me, it's putting more money into organizations like Jenna's Promise and the other people who are doing the real
long-term
addiction treatment.
Yeah.
And so that's the bottom line is we're just limited resources. I think at this point it's a silly way to spend that money.
And there's definitely a lot of money
agree.
that's out there that we could redirect for certain.
I agree. And I want to tell you why, and just because I have to, because you get going on these subjects, and this one is hard for
Well,
me.
in defense, I mean, this issue is extremely important to our community, especially in Barre City.
Yeah,
I mean, it's sketchy. I mean, it's scary.
Oh, I've heard that.
And it's not. I've lived here for 40 years. I remember walking the tracks as a kid and not feeling as uncomfortable as I've felt in the last year.
During in the park tonight, one of the kids that was down there found a needle on the ground
Oh,
at City Hall
God.
Park tonight.
That creeps me out so bad.
Yeah,
Oh.
it's it is frightening. But so, safe injection sites, and then Narcan, two very different things. Narcan saves lives. Safe injection is do your drugs here. That's not a life saver. You're putting money into continuing the cycle, as far as I'm concerned. You're just being an enabler. And so do you want to enable? Do you want them to come to the safe site at 9:00, but at 11:15 find some on the street and they get it for free, so they take it and now they have all of this on their system and they overdose and die? I mean, it just is that something that anybody really wants on their back? I don't want it on mine. And I got to that determination when I used to help my son all the time. Mom, I need money for gas, or I'm in trouble. I owe this person money. I need money for this. I need money for that. And I would always give in, right? Always give in and give it to him because I'm going to save him that way.
Right.
But I wasn't saving him. And I found that out from the therapist who said to me one night, could you live with yourself if your 20 bucks, if you had to live your
Right.
whole life thinking your 20 bucks killed your kid?
Right, about that last dose.
Right. And that's how we all have to look at it,
Yeah.
as far as I'm concerned, when it comes to safe injection. And that's not, we're just enabling that to continue. If you want something safe, get them help, get them supports, get them,
Yeah, well, in some jurisdictions, I have looked into a fair amount of this, and in some jurisdictions, they say that they do have a higher rate of getting people into treatment, which is a good thing. But like I said, Oregon tried it; theirs failed miserably. And so, with that being a test, I would say, maybe at some point we talk about it, because one of the things it does is, like in Burlington, there's people shooting up in the street. And I'd rather they had a place to go, but it's going to cost $1 million to set it up, and then you've got to pay for people to staff it and monitor it. And it's like, is it the best use of the funds? And at this point, I don't think it is. I think there's a lot of better ways to spend that money. And the bottom line is, we have got to cut the line that's bringing those drugs into our community.
100%.
Well, it's been a heavy conversation.
It's a heavy subject for sure.
Yeah, I wanna transition into something a little more lighter. Specifically, Phil Scott and his endorsement of you.
Ah. Well, I got a pretty good announcement on that subject for you that has not gone far and wide. So you're going to be some of the first.
Are
people
we
to
breaking?
hear it.
Is
You're-
Barry breaking the news?
You're breaking some stuff here.
Oh.
So I am now the only candidate for lieutenant governor supported by the last 3 governors of Vermont.
Really?
Nice.
Governor Scott, Governor Shumlin, and Governor
Really?
Douglas.
Wow,
Nice.
that's
Huge.
That's
Huge.
really
Absolutely
amazing.
huge. Absolutely.
awesome.
Wow, and that just goes to show the bipartisan part of it, right?
Exactly.
Shumlin is, a Democrat.
Yep. And him and I, we always got along. We disagreed strongly on some issues, but he has come out and said that I'm the one that he trusts to do the right thing for Vermonters.
Wow,
That's awesome.
That is
Congratulations.
Which is
pretty
huge.
awesome.
And,
That's
you know,
awesome.
Governor Douglas served in many statewide positions, and in a lot of those races, he was the Democratic and Republican nominee when he was Secretary of State. And so I couldn't be more proud to have, like, I don't know what it is, like close to 30 years of governors
Yeah. Wow.
supporting me. It's like Scott's into, this will be 10 for him, and I think Shumlin did 8, and you know,
Has
so
it been that long?
it's
Oh
been
my
a
goodness.
long time.
It has been a
20,
long
Yeah, it
time.
has.
20, let's say 20 something.
Wow.
Yeah.
That has, oh man, I'm getting old.
20 something. So
Yeah, and
pretty proud of that.
Yeah,
You
Shumlin's
should be. That's
helped
awesome.
Barre City out quite a bit. I mean, that was, Tom and Governor Shumlin worked together to get City Place,
Yep.
put up, which, he's definitely done some good for our city.
Yep.
But that's really awesome. Congratulations.
Yeah, thank you.
I mean, I'm not going to lie. I mean, it's great that you get the endorsement for Shumlin. Let's be honest, though. It's Phil Scott, right? Everybody
No,
loves Phil
absolutely,
Scott.
and,
Yeah.
and even
And
even Governor Douglas, who was extremely popular,
Yep.
never hit the numbers that Phil
Yeah.
Scott has hit.
Phil Scott is amazing, and I want to because I found the video that's of him and you, and I'm gonna share that with you guys because everybody that's watching, just because I think it's so amazing. Let's.
I'm running for governor to make Vermont more affordable, but I can't do it alone.
And I'm John Rodgers, running for lieutenant governor. I served 16 years as a Democrat in the legislature, but my old party in Montpelier is now out of touch with the needs of working Vermonters. That's why I'm running, to bring a voice for all parties.
If you want to make Vermont more affordable, I need you to vote for John and more common sense candidates for the legislature.
Let's build a stronger, more affordable Vermont together.
Paid for by Phil Scott for Vermont and John Rodgers for Lieutenant
So
Governor.
that's pretty awesome. That's a pretty nice endorsement, I'll say.
Absolutely.
Congratulations.
Yeah,
Yeah.
thank you.
Yeah, it's he's a good guy. I saw him down at Wheels for Warmth on Saturday and did a interview with him. I struggled to hear because it's so loud down there with the tires and everything that's happening. All the machines were up and running, but it was really good to see him down there. And I like Phil. He's a good guy.
Yeah,
I should
no.
call him Governor Scott, but I just
Yeah.
can't. It's difficult, It's because it's Phil Scott.
Yeah, no, he is great, and the range of support that he has is pretty amazing.
Yeah.
So you've been running all over the state.
Yeah.
You've gone to all different kinds of stores, probably mom, pops, restaurants, all that stuff.
Lots of events.
Any places that you've never been to before and you said, wow, when did this get here?
Yeah, we've hit some cool places. I gotta say, out of all the places I went this year, the Tunbridge Fair. I'd never been to the Tunbridge Fair, and everybody talks about, it's called the World's Fair or whatever, yada yada. I grew up in the Kingdom. There's a whole bunch of fairs around there that,
Yeah.
were just down the road. So
Yeah.
that's where you went. And Tunbridge Fair's a couple hours from us. But because of the campaign, I went there this year. We had the first debate was there, and that was my first visit to it. And I walked around a little bit and checked it out. And I said to my wife when I got home, we have got to go back to this fair. It's just the coolest little fair. And have you ever been?
Yes. It's been a lot of years.
And
but
so
I have
it's in
been.
this little bowl, and there's all those little hills around it. And they just had the most wonderful selection of food vendors, and everything was clean, and lots of agricultural stuff. It was just the coolest little fair
Yeah.
that I went to.
It is a cool fair.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Did you see my friends, the Jollies?
The
The
Jollies.
clowns. They're clowns.
The-
Whole family of clowns. No?
No, stayed right away from the clowns.
Okay.
It's hilarious because I was talking with somebody yesterday that was telling me that clowns creeped him out. And I have this really good friend, and he's just a really jovial guy. And clowns totally creep him out. And we bought this old camp years ago. And you know those bottle openers that are shaped like a dog or a bear or whatever, and you put the bottle in and it pops the top off. Well, there was this wicked old bottle opener. It was a clown that somebody had painted white with the big red lips and everything, but it had rusted a little bit, so it looked really creepy. He walks in the house and he looks at that and he goes, "You got to get rid of that." And it's so funny. Clowns really creep some people out. They
Yes,
can't
they
take
do.
it. Yeah.
Yes, they do.
So are you saying that clowns creep you out?
No. Clowns don't. Not much bothers me, Michael, but they do make some people a little queasy.
They do?
Yeah.
Well, they don't make. I know they don't make Phil Scott queasy because I've actually been, and you'll be able to see it in just a second. I put up the screen where I'm standing next to Phil Scott in my clown outfit.
Nice.
How do you know he wasn't afraid?
Right.
That is true.
Yeah.
Well, he had Tom with him, and let's be honest, with Tom next to you, you don't have to be afraid of anything.
There
Ask
you
the
go.
guy
Maybe
that
he
was
was
throwing
just
the
thinking,
pie.
get me away from
Right.
this
Get
dude.
me. Take the picture quick. Get me out of here.
All right. Well, we're hitting up 1 hour. I want to give you an opportunity to just give it. Say what do you want to tell the folks that are out there listening? Besides get out and vote on November 5th for John Rodgers. And as a side note for folks, it's too late for your absentee ballots. Drop them off.
Yeah. Drop them off.
Or go to the polls. It's too important to
Trust the mail.
trust the mail at this
Yeah,
moment.
do not.
Yeah. I mean, first thing is every vote matters because one time when I was running for the House, I literally lost by 1 vote. So every vote does count.
Yep.
If people are frustrated with the cost of living and want somebody who's going to stand up for the rest of us, I'm the guy. My opponent and the supermajority have had the last 2 years totally to themselves, and they own everything. The increase in property taxes, increase in your health insurance, electricity, the list goes on and on. Phil Scott wants to have a lieutenant governor that he can work with, and that's why he's endorsed me and supported me so strongly. And so please get out and vote. If you want to learn more about me, we do have a nice website at rodgersforvt.com. Check it out. We also are on Facebook at John Rodgers for Lieutenant Governor. But welcome people's questions. I'm always happy to visit with anybody and, just tell you where I'm from and how I grew up and how I got the values that I have. I want to give a voice to the working class and poor people of this state who have been forgotten in that state house.
All right.
I already cast my vote.
Woohoo!
Good.
Happily.
Good. Well, John, we do want to say thank you for coming, and once you're elected, we hope that you come back.
I'd love to.
We absolutely enjoy you being here. I'm really hopeful to be working with you in the future as well. So thank you very much. I want to say thank you to everybody that's watching the Barre Beat podcast live, Main Street, Barre, Vermont, at the 802 Scoop.